Special Envoy Hans Grunberg and bin Mubarak discuss latest Houthi escalation. Houthi drones provided by Iran pose danger to Yemen and the region. Yemeni children bear the brunt of the war and are victims of malnutrition. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shazad Delbey. The Minister of Foreign Affairs made a phone call with the UN Special Envoy to discuss latest developments in Yemen. In addition, this came following the Houthi militia attacks on oil facilities and their danger to international navigation, and the minister called for the need to hold them responsible for these terrorist acts. Bin Mubarak touched on the National Defense Council's decision to classify the Houthi militia as a terrorist group and affirmed the government's commitment to secure the citizens. The United Nations Security Council condemned in a statement the Houthi drone attack on the Yemeni port of Al-Dabba. In addition, in the statement, the Council members said the Houthi attack is a serious danger to Yemen's peace and stability and freedom of international navigation. The Council added that any security escalation would exacerbate the suffering of Yemenis, urging the Houthis to stop such attacks. The recent drone strike on Al-Dabba port has proved the Iran-backed Houthis as a power-craving terrorist organization. With the ending of the ceasefire, it's more important to stop Houthi drone danger to Yemen and the region. This report has more details.
Since the civil war's outbreak in 2014, Yemen's crisis has functioned as a live-fire testbed for Iran's longer-range weaponry. With the ceasefire's expiration on October 2nd, Iranian-sourced unmanned aerial vehicles will continue to provide data for Iranian military development cycles. Yemen's government announced last week that its soldiers intercepted armed drones fired on Al-Dabba oil facility in Al-Shahr, Hadramaut, as an oil ship prepared to dock. According to the Iran-backed Houthis, the warning strike was carried out to prevent the vessel in Al-Dabba from smuggling crude oil out of the port. The incident in Al-Dabba was the first serious escalation since the Houthis and the Yemeni government failed to extend a UN-brokered truce earlier this month, owing to disagreements over the payment of civil worker wages in Houthi-controlled regions. The relative period of peace starkly contrasts with the Houthis' increased missile and uninhabited vehicle capabilities in dozens of attacks last year. The Houthis have a history of using drone technology to achieve their political objectives and military operations. Drones have significantly boosted Iran's air power and regional allies in the years after the Iranian Revolution. The Houthi strikes, whether within or outside Yemen, usually appear to have a motive. In January 2022, for example, the Houthis conducted a drone strike deep within the UAE in retribution for their proxy's advances against Houthi-held territory in Yemen. While the Houthi drone strike caused only little physical damage, it demonstrated the Houthis' warfare expertise and tarnished the UAE's image as a safe haven in an otherwise war-torn region. In March, missiles and drones were launched at Saudi energy and water desalination facilities, according to Saudi Aramco, which declared that there was no impact on supply or casualties. The attack was portrayed by the Houthis as reprisal for Saudi-led aggression and blockade that has rendered most of Yemen a wasteland. Over the years, Iran has established a vast network of means and mechanisms to supply its militias with the military and financial support they need to carry out the regime's objectives. The international community must prioritize the establishment of a collective preventative strategy to curb the threat of drones in Houthi clutches, especially now that the ceasefire is no longer in place.
UNESCO approved a plan for education for all Yemenis and the implementation of a comprehensive educational process. This came in the presence of the Deputy Minister of Education, and UNESCO committed itself to proceeding with the launch of the 2025 plan in the Republic of Yemen. Acute malnutrition puts danger on half of Yemen's children under the age of 5 this year. The war has worsened the situation for them. This report has more details.
The current level of hunger in Yemen is unprecedented and is causing severe hardship for millions of people. Despite ongoing humanitarian assistance, 19 million Yemenis are food insecure, and the number is expected to increase even more in the coming months. UN agencies warn that 1 in 5 children under the age of 5 in parts of Yemen are estimated to be acutely malnourished and in urgent need of treatment as malnutrition cases increase in southern districts. The rate of child malnutrition is one of the highest in the world, and the nutrition situation continues to deteriorate. A recent survey showed that almost one-third of families have gaps in their diets and hardly ever consume food like vegetables, fruit, dairy products, or meat. The humanitarian situation in Yemen is extremely fragile, and any disruption in the pipeline of critical supplies, such as food, fuel, and medicines, has the potential to bring millions of people closer to starvation and death. World Food Programme calls for unimpeded access to reach those most in need and avert famine. Yemen has long battled with some of the highest malnutrition rates in the world. Until now, humanitarian interventions to treat and prevent malnutrition, as well as provide emergency food assistance, have prevented an even more severe deterioration. Escalating conflict and economic decline have pushed an already exhausted population to the brink. In addition to this, many aid projects, including emergency food assistance, water, sanitation, and hygiene services, have been disrupted by funding shortfalls. Malnutrition treatment programs are also at risk if additional funds are not received soon. There are a number of factors contributing to growing food and nutrition insecurity worldwide, including soaring food prices driven by the war in Ukraine, persistent drought due to climate change in some countries, regional, civil, and international communal conflicts.
Local sources confirmed the death of a 19-year-old girl by a Houthi mine in Ma'rib. She was killed as a result of a Houthi landmine explosion while she was grazing in Rahum area of Jabal Murad. Since the beginning of this week, a number of civilians have been martyred and injured by Houthi militia mines in a number of governorates. The Houthi militia seized 22 bodies of newborn babies due to their families' inability to pay hospital costs. This report has more details.
A Houthi-run hospital in Sana'a is keeping the dead bodies of 22 newborns, whose families couldn't pay the discharge costs due to deteriorating living conditions. The Houthi militia members who run the hospital threatened to take strict measures, such as burying the bodies if families didn't pay within 14 days. From the date of the announcement. They also vote to pursue grieving parents and file lawsuits against them, obliging them to pay what they owe. Moreover, the families of the 22 dead infants had visited the hospital administration more than once to negotiate a price reduction, yet to no avail. Some of the families had resorted to selling their assets and belongings, but were surprised by the doubled rates they were being charged by the hospital for keeping their deceased newborns in coolers. A human rights activist in Sana'a accused the same hospital administration of holding the infants in late August and a 5-year-old child hostage as a form of pressure to force their family to pay outstanding medical costs. Human rights defenders in Sana'a blamed poor living conditions suffered by Yemenis on Houthi corrupt policies, tempering an organized destruction of all state sectors. The scene in Yemen today describes the health sector status, which has been suffering deterioration since the beginning of the war. The health sector is facing challenges in provision and aid, which resulted in the function of only 50% of health facilities. The conflict in Yemen made it difficult for more than 80% of the population to access healthcare services. Additionally, the deterioration of health facilities was the third direct cause of the rising death rates in Yemen. The future of the health sector in Yemen is still uncertain, and it is expected to remain the same until the improvement of external funds by implementing organizations around the world.
During my visit, I was able to see firsthand how local doctors alongside ICRC personnel are treating weapon wounded in a local emergency room. I was able to speak with farmers whose livelihood has been severely disrupted by years of conflict and whom we're trying to bring some additional income to regain their livelihoods. Today, about 2 out of 3 Yemenis are considered food insecure. That's about 19 million people. Even more of them lack access to basic health care. Despite all this, Yemen is too often out of the spotlight, and we need to ensure that we receive continued support from donors and partners to continue our work. The ICRC is both addressing emergency needs and is trying to find solutions that will bring respite in the longer term. However, full recovery will only be possible if a political solution to the conflict can be found.
Coming next in the news. Intense cases of tropical diseases amid collapsing health services.
كل ما نزحنا من نزحة وانهم فوقنا هدموا بيوتنا. نزحت أنا وأنا بنتي بنت 7 أشهر اللي على زوجي. بعدها تم أنا من نزح في نزح. وقبل الفريق معرض منه. صيحنا لزوجي وصار وداه منه. صار مخيم. وقبل الفريق اللي هنا وأنا وجيعي في الخيمة. وعانني البنات ودني العلاج. ساعدني لما دخلني الشركة. طولي علاج فيتامينات. جاتنا الأمطار. دخلت السيول وانا والده دخل السيل ما دهنت بالسيل له وتحتي وانا والده ما قلت لي يومين
ولا عاد حتى قدرت اشل عيالي ما بلاتي يا بنت الصغيره اللي ترضع شليتها واحنا والله نحن حالتنا حاله وما عاد الا شلونا من رفعونا لمكان عالي ووصل اليوم جسنا لنا 3 أيام والله نحن في العراق وجاونا الفريق حقهم حق الاستجابه والله ما قصروا قدموا لنا من كل شيء.
Welcome back. The Undersecretary of Ma'rib installed the distribution of 50 tuk-tuks to disabled in the governorate. This was provided by the Kuwait Relief Society through the Communication Foundation for Human Development as part of the Kuwait By Your Side campaign. The Undersecretary explained the project targets 140 beneficiaries of the physically disabled category in a number of liberated governorates, including Ma'rib. In light of the psychological and social repercussions caused by the war, a number of community initiatives in Aden seek to build the capabilities of youth. This report has more details.
The war ignited by the Houthi militia cast dark shadows in various segments of Yemeni society and turned their dreams and future into mere nightmares. These girls and other young people in Yemen have been psychologically affected by the scourge of war that threatens the reality, but there are those who seek to take their hand to a path through which they can draw their dreams.
I am so grateful for this initiative, which seeks to help our students in high school, because they represent our future, and I think the goals of this initiative are so beneficial for providing the students with self-confidence.
200 male and female students enrolled in public secondary schools, helped by community programs to enhance their life skills, help them overcome the consequences of the war, and preserve what remains of hope. Planning for the future, building confidence, and making decisions are all life skills that can guide minds and build people.
You know that our youth in general are confronting war, and it is still ongoing. So now we are trying to help them and to diminish the behaviors they gained after the war, like psychological problems. And we are trying to diminish the intended ignorance done by the militia. We are targeting the youth category because in the meantime they are suffering and they need help, especially after the cessation of the learning process, which worsened their psychological states.
Education may not be enough to ensure a better tomorrow, as there are life skills that must be focused on in order to create a generation armed with science and capable of change.
Yemen participated in the meeting of senior officials of the Economic and Social Council for the Council League of Arab States. The meeting discussed the Arab vision of the digital economy, the mechanism for addressing the tax challenges, the problem of the informal economy in the Arab countries, and the economic and social recovery from the corona pandemic. The Central Bank of Yemen faced a number of issues related to the economic situation in its 8th meeting, headed by the governor of the bank. The meeting reviewed the results of the talks between Yemen and the International Monetary Fund to push the reform process. The council also reviewed a detailed report on the results of the meeting with various departments, which focus on increasing support for the central bank. A workshop under the title of Restoring Confidence and Capabilities in Yemen Banking Sector was organized in the Jordanian capital Amman. The activities of the workshop focus on enhancing confidence and resilience in the banking in Yemen. The participants stressed that the process of restoring confidence involves in applying many standards such as fighting money laundering and terrorist financing in the banking sector. The collapse of the health sector and the outbreak of dengue fever have left many Yemenis in hospitals. This report has more details.
According to the Ministry of Health and Taiz, the city of Taiz has recorded the greatest spread of dengue fever compared to other areas in the governorate. While most people who have dengue fever recover in about a week, sometimes the infection is more serious and occasionally it is fatal. Hayam Muhammad is one of those afflicted with the disease.
My sister suffers from dengue fever and she's currently receiving treatment at Al Jumhuriyah Hospital. She has been sick for 2 days. We have to pay the cost of treatment, and it is incredibly high. We appeal to relevant authorities to provide the necessary financial support to the health sector.
According to the most recent figures, 10,013 cases of dengue fever have been reported in Taiz, while the death toll has risen to 13. Unfortunately, a large number of patients refrain from visiting hospitals as a result of their inability to pay the costs of medication.
The recent outbreak of dengue fever has been frighteningly quick in Al Jumhuriyah Hospital, the largest Taiz governorate. We receive 30 to 40 patients per day.
The Ministry of Health ascribed the spread of dengue fever to a variety of factors, including the emergence of disease-bearing mosquitoes, the major collapse in the health sector, the shortage of clean water running through the city's supply lines, and the accumulation of waste in streets and neighborhoods.
Here's a reminder of the main headlines. Special Envoy Hans Grunberg and bin Mubarak discuss latest Houthi escalation. Houthi drones provided by Iran pose danger to Yemen and the region. Yemeni children bear the brunt of the war and are victims of malnutrition. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.